So we're back to alkynes, and what I want to talk about is this number 5 and number 6, if you have a double and a triple bond in a molecule. And then I'm also going to talk about what we call benzenes and cyclos. So if I draw this molecule with a double bond here and a triple bond here, do note the convention is you always start numbering by the double bonds. That's always going to be the rule. So I'm going to number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a weird naming system. I'll just tell you that right now. All right. So since there are 5, 5 is pent. So we're going to do pent En. For the double bond, and we're going to say where is the double bond. So we're going to do a 1 dash pentene. We're going to drop the E where you normally have it, and then we're going to put a dash and then a 3 for where the triple bond starts, and then a dash and a YNE. So you don't repeat the pent, even though it is still 5 carbons. So instead you put this kind of system, which is what this is trying to describe here, but it's not easy to describe. So that's how you name a double and a triple, and a double is the first priority. So see if you can draw this next molecule and see if you can name it. All right, so the correct name is 6-bromo, 2-chloro, 2-hexene, 4-ine. Okay, again, the double bond takes precedence, so you start counting over here. Even though you have a bromo group here, double bond is going to be first priority. And then it's hex because there are 6. You put the 4 YNE for the triple bond, and then you put the 6-bromo and the 2-chloro. All right, so the last part, we're going to talk about what we call aromatic versus cyclic compounds. Aromatic versus cyclic compounds. So aromatics is going to be what we consider another functional group. So write down functional group for aromatic. And cyclic means cyclo. Okay, so those have been the ones we've been already drawing as we go through this. So aromatics does not mean aroma, so it doesn't mean something that has a smell to it. Instead, it means it is a stable configuration. Okay, it's in what we call a planar ring. So it's a flat ring. It's a flat ring. So if I look at 2 compounds, okay, or 2 different systems, if I look at my cyclos, CnH2n was my formula. If I just take a look at cyclohexane, for instance, I will see that each carbon here has 2 hydrogens off of it, okay? So this is called cyclohexane, okay? We also have another molecule that looks very similar, but its formula is C6H6, and we talked about it when we were talking about molecular and empirical form. It's called benzene, okay? Now this is different than cyclohexane, but it looks very similar, so I want to talk about the differences. So in benzene, you actually have 3 double bonds. So what happens is you only have 1 hydrogen off of each carbon. Okay, so write down 3 double bonds. Okay, another way you will see benzene is a hexagon with 3 double bonds drawn in there. Or you could also see a hexagon with a circle in it. And that's because this has what we call resonance. That means those 3 double bonds are throughout the whole structure, okay? So any which way you draw benzene is going to be fine, okay? But this molecule is a different molecule than cyclohexane. Different number of hydrogens, okay? This is C6H12, this is C6H6, okay? And they are going to have different phenomena. So with naming benzene, the cool thing about this is it's going to be pretty easy. All you have to do is pay attention to what the branches happen to be. So I'm going to draw benzene with the circle in the middle. Again, you could draw it with the 3 double bonds. It does not matter how you like to draw it. But the cool thing about this is you always end it in benzene. So just like a cyclo, That's your longest chain. You don't have to think anything of it. And then you got to look at your branches and see who comes first. Whoever comes first is going to get the number 1, just like we did with other cyclos. And then you want to get chlorine to the lowest number. It actually doesn't matter which direction you go. Either way, you're going to get it to 4. So this is going to be 1 bromo, 4 chloro, benzene. Okay, so same kind of rules, except you have to recognize that that's a benzene, not a cyclo. Okay, now the last thing we're going to talk about with this benzene is something called orthometapara. Okay, so I'd like you to draw 3 different benzenes, and then put the chlorines right next to each other, 1 carbon between it, and then 2 carbons between. I'm going to pause the video and then pick up there. So if the 2 substitutions on the benzene are right next door to each other, we call them ortho. If there's 1 carbon between it, we call it meta. And if there's 2 carbons between it, we call it para. Okay, so there's going to be 2 different ways you can name these, and it's a personal preference. So the more traditional way is just to call it a benzene at the end, and then you're going to call it 1,2 dichlorobenzene. Okay, another way you can put it is to call it ortho. So instead of the 1 and the 2, you're going to put an O, you're going to put a dash, and you're going to go dichlorobenzene. So really what the ortho, meta, and the para do is they substitute in the number. Okay, so this traditional way would be 1,3 dichlorobenzene, or you could write M-dichlorobenzene. And you could have 2 different substitutions. So you could actually have a chlorine and a bromo here. So you could say bromochlorobenzene. That's perfectly acceptable as well. And finally, para is 1,4 dichlorobenzene, of course. No difference there. And then you put a P-dichlorobenzene. Now for quizzes and tests, I'm not going to force you to do ortho, meta, or para, but I am going to ask you to recognize it. So I might give you the name as meta dichlorobenzene and ask you to draw it. But in terms of naming, if you name it 1,3 dichlorobenzene, I will give you full credit. All right, so let me draw one more down here for practice and see what you call it. So for this one, again, if you want to use meta, you can, because there's 1 between it, meta bromofluorobenzene, or you can do 1 bromo, 3 fluorobenzene. Either one is going to be acceptable to me, but you are going to have to know what ortho, meta, and para mean.